Lastly, I did want to mention that we have some tenants impacted by what's happened here at Pier 45. There is power on at shed A, B, and D. And we will be notifying and working with all of our tenants to let them know when it is safe to return to sheds B and D that were not at all impacted by the fire. And we will be providing that update to them as soon as possible. Certainly, we do not expect that they will be allowed back today, maybe tomorrow, maybe through the weekend, but we will be in close communication with them so that they are able to know when they're able to return and assess their goods and services there at shed B and D that was not affected by the fire. We will be in touch with them. I'd like to also thank the public and the press for being, on the one hand, compassionate and interested in this issue, but also, keeping a safe distance away. This was a significant operation that involved hundreds of personnel from the fire department, from the port, and other agencies to help contain this effort and make sure that we're all safe. I particularly want to thank SCOMAs for their efforts to help feed the effort. They provided great food for us, and we really appreciate their efforts. And with that, I will pause and yield back the time to Lieutenant Baxter.
So with that, we will take some questions.
Lieutenant, could you please talk about what was saved and the effort that went into that, namely the museum and the SS Jeremiah O'Brien?
Yeah, so the question is what efforts did we deploy and what did we save with those efforts? So again, as in the previous updates, an extensive fourth alarm operation. One of the first priorities from the first in companies was to protect life, protect property, which is the adjoining exposures, the adjoining warehouses, and the Jeremiah O'Brien. Fireboat 3 was detailed and tasked with saving this Jeremiah O'Brien, which they successfully did. This was a task that involved greater than 100 feet lengths of flame going over the Jeremiah O'Brien, structural collapse with the walls coming in. All of those efforts related to the Jeremiah O'Brien being saved by the Fireboat 3. Fireboat 3 has been reassigned now to putting water on the actual contained fire to help get all the hot spots out. We've also deployed multiple hand lines as well as what we call multiversatile hose streams and our water towers with our ladder trucks to protect all the warehouses, including the museum and commercial businesses, which we successfully did. Now, at this point, as we're rolling into the recovery phase, San Francisco has many opportunities and resources available for the employers and the employees to remain stable. We're going to be reaching out to all those affected as a city, this family that we are so fortunate to be a part of, and make sure that they are provided with the resources that they need to stay sustainable. We are getting questions such as, is there electricity to some of these buildings? At this time, some of them do have electricity and some of them do not. We are working on making sure that we will be able to get everything restored so that businesses that do have fish that need to be kept cold and businesses that do need electricity to stay in business once we can reopen, we'll have that available for them. For the companies and the businesses that are closed right now, we're aggressively evaluating the structural integrity of the pier below to make sure that we can get them back in service and open once we have that determined, which will be at a later time, hopefully within the next couple of days, if not sooner.
And the museum, the damage at home?
The museum is completely fine with no damage.
One that was burned, and then you mentioned like B and D. Can you kind of describe what shed means? Like, what is the layout that we're talking about?
So Pier 45, there are 4 main structures. We call them sheds. Shed A, B, C, and D. A and C are here where the museum is, and over by the O'Brien is where Shed C was. That's the one that burned. Shed B and D are on the other side of the pier, And I just wanted to confirm that there is power on shed B and D, and that's where a lot of the commercial food processing for the city and frankly for the Bay Area happens. There is power there, and those refrigerators are working. However, there was no damage to shed A right behind me here where the museum is and closer to where the Pompanito is. The Pompanito, there was no damage there, but shed C, which is directly behind shed A, that's the one that burned, and that's the one that's closer to the O'Brien. So we're really grateful to the quick work of the fire department to not only save the O'Brien, but to put the fire out at shed C before it was able to spread to A or jump across the pier to some of the other facilities that we have near there, particularly in shed B and D, where we have a lot of our commercial fish processing.
Randy, any plans to move the ship?
At this time, we are investigating the need to move the ship. We know that she, took on some damage. There was some fire damage to some of the lines, but we're not sure yet. At this point, the investigation is ongoing, and once that's completed, if there is a need to move the vessel, we are able to move the vessel to another location and where she can be safe. But the important thing is that she has been saved. She did not go down. She's not irreparably damaged.
Kind of a little deep question here. I understand that these were built around 26 and 27. Is that all 4 sheds on Pier 45?
Pier 45 was initially constructed, this whole facility with Pier A, B, C, and D in 1926. There was a recent 1993 seismic upgrade to some of the sheds behind me here, but yeah, these have been part of the waterfront in San Francisco for a long time. This is a tragic loss for all of us. One of the things that we love along the waterfront is our historic piers, our piers that have been around and part of the history and long-lived legacy of San Francisco as a port city, as a town that meets the water, that welcomes people. So this is a big loss, but we are grateful for the fact that there was no loss of life and that we were able to preserve the rest of our historic treasures that are housed there. So we are really grateful that, what could have turned into a major conflagration, because of the heroic efforts of the fire department and the quick thinking of all of our partners, we were able to save some of these structures, and we're excited about that, and we're hopeful. That is the silver lining of the day, the fact that, a structure, that could have gone up, could have taken down more in the area, did not. We were able to maintain the integrity of the place.
One more time, what was in shed C?
We in shed C had some storage space for some of our fish processors. We also had some office space for some tenants like Red and White, Blue and Gold, and things like that. But for the most part, it was storage space. So we know that there is a cost there, but we are grateful for the fact that there was no loss of life, and are eternally grateful for the fact that we're able to preserve the integrity of the space with the O'Brien and the rest of the sheds there. We're hopeful that the investigation will show us a path forward on what to do with it, but we don't want to get ahead of that as it is just beginning now.
Blue and Gold said they don't have an office in there.
I'm sorry, I made a mistake.
Is that right?
Red and White has offices there.
White.
Yeah.
Could you just clarify, you said the ship had damage. It was minimal damage, you said?
I understand some of the lines were singed. So some of the lines that are used to tie up the ship in the aft section.
Were there cars that were destroyed? I'm assuming there were cars and vans that were destroyed inside that shed C?
So the question was, is there cars or vans that were destroyed within the shed of this fire? Again, we're going to have to be able to evaluate that once our investigators are safe and cleared to enter that structure to make that determination. There are some vans along the side and some vehicles along the side that did take some heat damage and water damage as well. So we will have some vehicles that will be damaged as a result of this incident.
Could you talk a little bit about how integral the fireboat was to saving the ship as well as the museum and other structures?
It's my professional opinion that without the fireboat, we would have lost the Jeremiah O'Brien. Just end statement there. The Fireboat 3 did an amazing defensive fire attack and defended our history, specifically on Memorial Day weekend. It saved that vessel. I can't stress that enough. In addition to that, Fire Rescue Boat 1 was instrumental in holding the flames back from reaching over as an exposure to the adjoining warehouses that would be to the west of the fire building. So both those marine assets were absolutely instrumental in protecting the waterfront, protecting the community during this incident. We have posted some videos from our marine assets on our Instagram account, which is at SFPD PIO, which shows some of the actual amazing efforts that we were faced with during this incident.
Well, you had two boats. You had two boats out there.
We had the Fireboat 3, the St. Francis, which was dedicated to protecting the Jeremiah O'Brien. And we had our newly acquired Fire Rescue Boat 1 that was assisting with fire operations on the west side. We had shift change at 8 o'clock, which allowed us to get another boat operator, and engineer, and crew. So we currently have Fireboat 1, Fireboat 3, and Fire Rescue Boat 1 around this building, continuing to help with the efforts to get this completely extinguished. Again, let me reiterate, this fire is contained. So as this fire is contained, it means that we now have to move to under control. When we get to under control, that means that we can start working with the recovery process, and our investigators will be able to enter and start their investigatory process as well.
Can you talk a little bit about the injury for the firefighter? It sounded like he got a pretty bad cut on his arm. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, so our firefighter who was injured received a severe laceration to his hand while directing his crews to battle this fire during this incident. True to the nature of this specific individual, he wrapped himself up and just wanted to continue to work and lead his crews, but the injury was too severe that we had to actually push him out of the incident and tell him he needs to go to the hospital and get this cared for.
Do you know around what point it was that he sustained an injury? Was it during the initial fight, or?
This injury was acquired roughly around 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning at the 4th alarm level. Any other questions?
The seagulls want to get on camera as well.
Yes, I have lots of friends behind me. Any more questions? All right.
I'm so sorry.
Yep.
How does this experience compare to something like the 1906 fire, which also began on a pier, right? I mean, what is it about modern firefighting and modern building codes that made this different than one that would have wiped out the city?
That's a great question. The question at hand is, how does this fire compare to that in which this city faced in 1906? This city prides itself on being resilient. The city prides itself on having redundancy programs in place to make sure that when we have a disaster, we can effectively fight that disaster away from what we've learned in the past. So we have the fireboats. Those fireboats, again, were instrumental in fighting this fire, something that we did not adequately have in 1906. We have the above ground water system, which was the 5-inch line. We actually did a post on our Twitter account earlier about that. That stretched about a half-mile long of hose line to a high-pressure hydrant. The high-pressure hydrant is something we did not have in 1906. It's a completely separate firefighting water system that has 3 independent pumps throughout the city that can gauge the pressure that we need to fight a fire of this magnitude. All of those were employed today. We have the fire reserves, which are an auxiliary firefighting system that we have in this department. This is a non-paid volunteer group of professionals who train weekly and monthly to protect the city during fires of this magnitude. We employed them. They are here today. So if we did not have those measures in place, if we can kind of relate that back to the earlier question as to what would have happened if the fireboat wasn't there, we not only would have probably lost the Jeremiah O'Brien, we may have also lost a majority of the Marina District. Any other questions? All right, please follow us on our social media accounts for future updates, as this will be our last presser for today on this incident. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Jonathan Baxter, Randy Casada from the Port Authority.
Thank you very much. What's your spelling of your name?
You were watching a live press conference of the San Francisco Fire Department. They were discussing a massive early morning fire in a warehouse on Pier 45. There are 4 large structures on that pier. The fire department says that this blaze was contained to what is known as Building C on the end of Pier 45. Now, one firefighter was injured in that fire, in battling that blaze. They said that he suffered a fairly severe cut to his hand and was taken to the hospital. Those injuries are not considered life-threatening, and that firefighter is expected to make a full recovery. You also heard that the USS Jeremiah O'Brien, a World War II-era ship that was docked at Pier 45, was saved. That was saved principally with one of the fireboats that the fire department deployed in battling this blaze. And they also said that there are some tenants of the surviving buildings that have been temporarily displaced. Thanks again for watching this edition of CBSN Bay Area, and stay tuned here for the latest updates as they become available.